Hey everyone, I'm going to make some cards with the February 2022 SheetLoad of Cards template. This is from Call Me Crafty. I'll put a link below to the website and all the details on how you can get the template yourself. It has on the front the design and all of the dimensions that you need to cut the paper down to. This one creates a yield of 6 cards. I'm actually going to do a double batch today, so I'm going to make 12 cards. And on the back it has all the details about how to cut down your paper, and it relies on 3 sheets of 6x6 patterned paper for the design. The reason why I love this one is I love using up my scrap papers, so I'm sure that I will create another video with this. But for the moment, I have chosen the Paper Rose Gnomie Love paper pad, which has got lots of red, white, and grey. This pattern paper pack has 18 pieces of double-sided paper, so 3 of each. It has the gnomes with some stripes on the back. We've got a nice pinky red, and then the envelopes and hearts. We've got this pink washed out design, and then the grey and white stripe. Got the red with polka dots, and then the hearts and the presents. Got the zigzags, and then the dots. And then we've got this grey design, and then this piece which can be cut up into 4 3x3. Now I'm going to cut up each of these pattern papers into strips of 1 inch, and I'll have some spare along the bottom. I'm going to use the spare paper to cut out my little gnome die cut from Simon Says Stamp, and this is going to be my die cut image on my card. I'm then going to use either my VersaFine, which I normally use for my sentiment, or I just got my very first Stampin' Up product. I've never used them before, but I just got the basic grey stamp pad. So depending on which I think looks better with the design, I'll either stick with my normal VersaFine or I will try out the Stampin' Up. I haven't picked my sentiment just yet. I'm going to create the cards first and then see what suits. Let's see how it goes. The first step is to actually cut the paper down. So I cut 1.5 inches off one end of the paper, and then I spun it around and cut 6 strips of 1 inch that were all now 4.5 inches in length. I worked my way through the pattern paper, selecting patterns that I thought would not only look good for the strips for the center panel, but also pattern papers that I thought I could use with my gnome die cut. This meant that if I planned ahead, I'd be able to get some really good color combinations on the final cards and everything would coordinate. The next step is to actually attach the strips of 1 inch paper to the matting layers. I had pre-cut a load of these, and they are 4 3/4 and to 3.5. I always put the 2 outside pieces on first, so if I line those up, giving myself the right size border, I can then just balance the piece in the middle to make sure that I've got an equal gap on either side. This means it's a little bit more forgiving if you line something up incorrectly or give an incorrect width. You don't have to trim down the matting layer. So I've worked through all 12 of these, and I've decided, instead of mixing all the patterns up completely, that I would instead create 6 panels that are the same design and then another 6 panels of the other pattern papers. This means when I get to the point where I have all of my gnomes, and I'm expecting those to be all quite unique, there'll be a few the same, but I will mix them all up a lot. I will have a better chance of lining them up with a backing panel. I normally have card bases ready to go, but I did find I needed to score and fold some. So just quickly showing you here me using my old scoreboard. I haven't replaced it with a new one. This one works just fine. So I'm just scoring those straight down the middle. I'm attaching my grey backing panels. I do this most often off camera, but it's a very straightforward process. I do need to be very careful with these panels because they're copy paper. So I'm being very, very gentle with them and making sure that I don't crease them. And that's really important when I'm actually using my ATG to put the adhesive on the back. The next step is to actually attach all of the center panels to the prepared card bases. I'm just running through with my ATG. I find this really fast. You can absolutely use whatever you have. If you had double-sided tape or liquid glue, those will also work. When I'm attaching the backing panels, I'm holding them up at an angle. I apologize, this isn't great for the video, but I just found it so much easier to line them up than laying it flat. So for all 12, I just held them in front of me, lined up the little panel in the middle, and made sure everything was symmetrical and straight. The next part was a little bit fiddly, but I really did enjoy it. I had spent some time with my die cutting machine and I had cut the backing pieces mainly in white with a few of them in black. And I had run through my pattern paper as I had said earlier, so that I had pieces that actually matched in with the cards. I found that I would probably do it differently next time. I tried to line up the pattern paper so that I had the hat of the gnome, or the top part of the gnome, and his clothing at the bottom, one of each pattern paper. So I did one pass through my die cut machine to get the top of the gnome and the bottom of the gnome. I then did not have the nose and the beard, so I needed to run through and do those. So when I did the nose and the beard, I ran it through and did the entire die cut. So I have an imbalance of pieces. I have lots of black and lots of grey of the hats and the clothing that I didn't use. So I have those spare for next time. I think using this die cut again, I would just run the whole gnome through every time and then just bank on the fact that I can mix and match. And there might be a few pieces that I need to throw away. For example, if I had a grey and white striped nose or a pink beard. I guess the other thing is there's probably no rules in crafting, so I might have found that I could make those work, which means the next time I'm just going to go for it and see what I can do with those pieces. Doing a partial die cut made it quite fiddly when removing the die cuts from the metal die itself, and I think the time it took to fiddle around could have been avoided. These are so super cute. I was very conscious that I didn't use the gnomes side of the pattern paper for the 1-inch strips, so it was nice to be able to pair it up with a die that I already had and make it work. I really wasn't sure what I was going to do with my sentiment, and in the end I picked a sentiment that fitted well on the size of the sentiment strip that was in the card sketch. So I used the Hip Hip Hooray stamp, and that came from the Lawn Fawn Tiny Tag Sayings Birthday stamp set. I use this a ton. It is actually, I would say, my #1 most used stamp set. The happy birthdays are just the perfect size to fit on smaller sentiment strips, and therefore I just find myself reaching for it again and again. I have not used my MISTI for this. I literally just stamped them, and if there's one or two that don't work, I find that's way quicker than trying to use a MISTI for the bulk stamping of the sentiments. I'm now attaching them all to the cards, and the cards are almost done. The next thing is to work my way through and match the gnomes with the card panels. Now, I mentioned earlier that I did 6 of one layout and 6 of another. This is why I figured it would have taken me ages to try and line up which ones make the most sense to go together if I had been using a completely different, unique combination of backgrounds as well as the mixed up gnomes. I'm finding that I'm trying to line them up by having no repeat of pattern paper. So for the ones with the zigzag, I'm trying to avoid the gnomes with the zigzag pattern. The ones with the big, thick grey and white stripes, I'm trying to avoid the gnomes with that pattern paper as well. In the end, it worked out. I had 13 completed gnomes and 12 cards, so I have 1 spare, as well as lots of elements that I can use if I'd like to make some more gnomes for future cards. The ones with the black outline actually stand out really well on this card design, so that would be something I would consider doing more of next time as well. I really just did that to mix things up a little bit, but it ended up working out really nicely. I just glued all of the gnomes onto the cards. It's pretty forgiving. The layout's not really specific, so getting some liquid glue and good coverage on the back of the die cut and then lining that up on the card, predominantly on the left-hand side, is well aligned with the sketch. So these have worked out really well, and I'm super happy with the combination of the colors and the layouts and the pattern papers that I picked. So here's the final 12 cards, looking very cute. I have put some links down below to all of the products that I have used in case you need anything. And I've put a link here to a video that I think you might enjoy. Have a great day.